Welcome back. College students would normally have to worry about getting good grades and keeping off the freshman 15, but this year brings a whole new set of challenges. As UNC and Notre Dame see cases spike, colleges around the country are rethinking their fall semester plans, with more and more opting for online only. But is there a way for college campuses to keep functioning during the pandemic? Dr. Blythe Adamson is an infectious disease epidemiologist and economist. She's also an advisor for Testing for America, a nonprofit whose goal is to help schools and businesses reopen safely and permanently. It's great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So is it possible for colleges to stay open even with an outbreak of COVID cases?
Well, testing is really the guide for this to happen. We've learned from UNC and Notre Dame now that one of the lessons and takeaways was that they were testing frequently enough to recognize right away that an outbreak was happening and change their policies in real time to adapt and not flying blind at all. So there's a lot to learn from those cases.
Although we're still not sure how they're going to play out. So Notre Dame has suspended in-person classes for a couple of weeks. But then what? And what about the schools that have football practice going on, but they're sticking with online learning? It seems like there's a double standard.
It does. And, there's a high likelihood that athletes would even need to be tested more frequently than an average student living in a residence hall. But in my mind, the focus really should be on a priority set of schools, the ones that are likely to be the most vulnerable to an outbreak. And that's really historically Black colleges and universities, where these students are returning from neighborhoods that have a very high prevalence of disease. There are wealth disparities in the resources these schools have, and there are healthcare disparities. And, it's those schools that don't have the endowments to support the type of testing that's going to be required to reopen their schools safely.
And you work with a lot of those HBCUs. What can you tell us about their plans? How are they preparing to cope with these outbreaks? If they have outbreaks, are students going to be sent home, or are they just going to soldier on?
Well, I've been working closely with many of these HBCUs, and I would say that one of the strongest leaders so far has been Delaware State University. They've been testing their students since July as more and more are returning to campus, and they have a very rigorous, thorough protocol in place for the frequency that they're testing these students, and a clear action plan for when a student becomes positive. So they do full contact tracing. They have a dorm that's just for recovering students who are identified as positive. But these things require incredible resources. And so, without these huge endowments, we're really relying upon, corporations, high net worth individuals, philanthropic donors to be able to support the testing that's needed for these schools to remain safe.
Are there any lessons for public schools, for younger kids across America?
Oh, well, I think that it's hard to know what's happening unless you have the data. And I think that testing, especially testing teachers, who are the ones probably being most exposed to students and a different mix of people, will be the takeaways that we can get for schools of all ages.
Yeah, and as you've emphasized, that's incredibly costly, and they often don't have the resources to do it. So this remains a sticking point for so many different education institutions. Dr. Blythe Adamson, thank you for joining us. It's good to have you today.
Thank you for having me.